Morning everybody, welcome to church again, and here we are, the first week of slightly relaxed regulations, but it's still not enough for us to all get together. I've called the message this morning, the Gadarene Enigma. The Gadarene Enigma. And the question is this: what on earth was Jesus and the disciples doing sailing a boat to Gadara? What were they doing? What was he thinking? Where had he got that idea to go there? And it's right down on the eastern side of Galilee, and it's an area called the Decapolis, or the 10 towns. It's right down on the southern tip and extends well into the inland areas adjacent to the shore. And it was a Greek-speaking Roman area. Originally settled by the armies of Alexander the Great, and following the breakdown of the Hellenistic Empire, the region was subsumed by the Romans and settled by retired Roman soldiers at the completion of their military service. So despite the Roman occupation, the area retained its glorious Hellenistic culture, which the Romans respected and loved. The underlying thinking behind this was that the Roman authorities would have a large number of well-trained and experienced soldiers, effectively a military reserve force, to call upon in the event of an unexpected security problem or an invasion by enemy forces from the east. And this also helps to explain why there were 2,000 pigs grazing on the hillside above Galilee. The Greeks and the Romans loved their pork. The thing is, no Jew would have gone anywhere near this territory, which is what makes Jesus' visit here such an enigma. This was seriously unclean territory. You know, I've actually been there. I've been to the place where the pigs ran down the hillside. It's the only place in that whole area where it could happen. And I've been to one of the 10 towns. It's a place called today Bet-Shan, and its ancient name was Scythopolis. And it was probably the most spectacular set of ruins that I've ever seen. It was destroyed by an earthquake, unfortunately, in the 2nd or 3rd century. But boy, oh boy, this was a high-end luxury town. Very expensive retail arcades, country clubs of all sizes, baths, gymnasiums, theatres, you name it, temples. It had everything, and everything was first class. It is a spectacularly beautiful place. Also not a place to be a Jew. So the story has two sides to it. And this could possibly help to explain the enigma. On the one side, there's the story of Jesus healing and delivering the demoniac from the legion of demons oppressing him. The flip side of the story is that either Jesus or Mark himself was also making a profound anti-Roman political statement. Remember, Jesus was no stranger to subversive comments. He was doing it all the time, but usually to the Jewish religious people. This time, this could well be a poke in the eye at the Romans. Remember, Mark was based in Rome with the Apostle Peter, and this may well have shaped the way that he told this story. Certainly everyone reading it would have got the message loud and clear and had a really good chuckle. So the presence of the Roman 10th Legion in Judea at the time is well known. Their fortress is inside Jerusalem and was adjacent to the temple. There was also the presence of policing units throughout the area enforcing tax collection and border control regulations in border towns such as Capernaum on the one side and possibly the other side of the border, which was Bethsaida. The border is the River Jordan, and it marks the boundary between the tetrarchy of Herod Antipas in Galilee and Herod Philippus in Syria. So Jesus and the disciples have sailed to the area of Galilee where there are few, if any, Jews. Certainly no self-respecting Jew would ever go there while he still had breath. So it's originally Greek. It's now got a strong Roman flavour to it. And the 10th Legion is garrisoned in Judea, not that far away. He was immediately approached by an unfortunate man who was said to be possessed by unclean spirits. And Mark describes him. It said, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no one could bind him, not even with chains, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains. And the chains had been pulled apart by him, and the shackles broken in pieces. Neither could anyone tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying out and cutting himself with stones. So whether or not he was a Jew, he was seriously unclean, and no amount of social distancing was going to work on that day. And then it gets strange. In verses 6 and 7 we read, when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and worshipped him. And he cried out with a loud voice and said, what have I to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you by God that you do not torment me. And then Jesus starts to deal with the man. For he said to him, come out of the man, unclean spirit. Then he asked him, what is your name? And he answered, saying, my name is Legion, for we are many. My name is Legion, for we are many. This is a clever play on words, where legion here could either mean that there are a lot of us in here, and it probably did. It can also refer to the Roman military unit, the legion, which was garrisoned in the country, in the province. So I suspect that at this point Mark's readers would have already begun to wonder what was going on here. Also, he begged him earnestly that he would not send them out of the country. And then this. Now a large herd of swine was feeding there near the mountains. So all the demons begged him, saying, send us to the swine that we may enter them. And at once Jesus gave them permission. Then the unclean spirits went out and entered the swine. There were about 2,000. And the herd ran violently down the steep place into the sea and drowned in the sea. This was the part of the story that would have got their attention. Can you have a guess at what the regimental mascot of the 10th Legion was? It's on their coins, it's on their seals, it's everywhere, on all their inscriptions. You guessed it, it was a pig. So the backstory to this little episode is about how Jesus delivered a man from oppression by the Legion as the entire country was oppressed by the 10th Legion. So Jesus not only delivers the man from Roman oppression, he also destroys the Legion by sending it to possess 2,000 of its own mascots and then violently self-destruct into Galilee. This was Jesus at his absolutely subversive best. The message is clear. I am not only the Jewish Messiah sent to save the Jews. I am Lord over even the mighty Roman Empire. I can set you free from their oppression, and when I so choose, I can destroy them all. That in itself would be a good reason for including this story. But then it brings us to the other and the more obvious read of the events in the region of Gadarenes. Once again, we see Jesus minding his own business when he is approached by a man with very obvious problems. The man has unclean spirits, according to Mark, and the spirits within him recognise Jesus immediately. Of course it was, it's Mark. Everything's immediate. And then they start to worship him. They knew who Jesus was. What have I to do with you, Jesus, the Son of the Most High God? They know that this is not going to be a good day for them. And they plead with Jesus, "I implore you by God that you do not torment me." They knew he would cast them out of the man, so they looked to an alternative to oblivion. And Jesus then told the demons what was going to happen, and then, "Come out of the man, unclean spirit." Then he asked him, "What is your name?" And he answered, saying, "My name is Legion, for we are many." They pleaded to be sent into the herd of pigs, and Jesus obliges. And they all run down the steep slope and into Galilee and drown. Well, that is the end of the event, but it's not the end of the story. The people who were responsible for the pigs had just taken a huge financial hit. To give you an idea, at today's prices, Jesus had seemingly just destroyed about $1 million worth of livestock. The combination of seeing the demoniac healed and then their livelihood destroyed was too much. They ran and told the people in town, and they all came out, and when they saw what had happened, they pleaded with Jesus to leave quickly. Jesus had got into the boat and was ready to leave, but the man who was healed wanted to be with Jesus. And what was Jesus' response? Did he say, "Sure, welcome aboard, we'll find you some clothes when we get back home"? Of course he didn't. Jesus did not permit him, but said to him, "Go home to your friends and tell them what great things the Lord has done for you and how he has compassion on you." And he departed and began to proclaim in Decapolis all that Jesus had done for him, and all marvelled. Just healing and delivering the man is not the end of the story. There is a response that Jesus calls for whenever we see wonderful healings or day-to-day blessings that clearly demonstrate the power and character of God. He tells the man to go home to your friends and tell them what great things the Lord has done for you and how he has had compassion on you. Jesus understands the importance and the necessity for testimony. It is only right that we give God all the glory whenever something good happens. So he sends the man back to his own home, to his family and his friends. Just seeing him in his right mind and clearly free of the oppressive spirits that had almost destroyed him was going to be the best testimony of the love and the grace of God possible. And this to a town and a district of Gentiles. So friends, it's a story about the power of testimony, because that's exactly what the man did. And he departed and began to proclaim in Decapolis all that Jesus had done for him. And all marvelled. The power of testimony. It encourages others who may be having a hard time. It can also act as a word of knowledge for anyone else who may be suffering in the same way as you were. There could well be deliverance right then and there for that person. And if you don't share your testimony, that person may never get their healing. In evening church, we have a time of testimony every week. I'd like to do it in the mornings as well. And it's so encouraging to hear all the wonderful things that God has done in the lives of our friends each week. Amen? Okay, friends, we're going to move into Holy Communion now, and we'll just set that up. Thank you.